Hello, welcome everybody to the Jump Seat. Today is season 2, episode 2. It is January 15th, 2021. We are here for our second week of the new year to bring you guys the Jump Seat and obviously talk about something great. Before that, for those joining the Jump Seat for the first time, it is a weekly spotlight bringing you key industry leaders, thought leadership, and subject matter experts. All about the fire service, right, Dave? I'm joined here with my co-host, Dave Durstein.
Hey,
We
John.
are excited for another wonderful week here, and I don't know about you guys, but there's a lot going on. Dave, I'm going to fire it back to you of happenings in our fire service this week. What's going on?
Yeah, absolutely, John. It's great to be back in the jump seat with you as usual here. We got a great guest and a great show for us all here today. But it's kind of unique and it's an opportunity today that I want to share maybe a little different twist on what's happening in the fire service here. I'm going to share my screen really quick with all of you. And so the headlines in this one, this happens to be Bristol, Connecticut. And a Bristol resident was honored for helping a neighbor escape a fire. John, this one actually ties a little closer to home with you and I versus maybe just Bristol, Connecticut. And that this employee here, right in the center, is no other than Pablo Guzman, a member of the IDEX team. So Pablo actually works for the IDEX Corporation, actually at our Health and Sciences division out of Bristol, Connecticut. And so Pablo, great job. He actually was walking out of the house in the morning, happened to actually see smoke down the street, and kind of went down the street and literally found that there was an elderly man trapped inside. He hollered to his wife to call 911 and managed to work his way into the house and rescue that individual. Now, we all know in the fire service, we don't want anybody from the public just generally going into a burning structure, but great job on Pablo's part. He was fine and healthy and was able to actually help save this elderly man from this burning home. So great job to Pablo. And, just because he's not in our division of fire and safety doesn't mean they can't make a big impact as firefighters or in the fire service in their local community. So
Super.
Pretty cool piece in the news there today.
You bet. Yeah, it's good to hear the good things, right? A lot of times it's just the bad stuff we hear. So fantastic. Like Dave said, congrats and well done. So
yeah, absolutely. Pablo.
Very exciting. Yeah, so just kind of switching gears. Last week we led into just the topic of 2021 and how we are kind of living off the several last months of last year, and that's all affected our lives and our careers and our jobs. And for those in the fire service, it's affected how we do our jobs a little bit, and a lot of things that go along with that secondary. And I wanted to talk and bring in somebody that could tell us a little bit about the topic, not just of leadership, but leadership during uncertain times and some of the keys that help us to succeed and thrive within. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in our guest for the day. Here he is, Chief Jason Hoevelmann. Jason comes to us from the St. Louis metro area. And Jason, I appreciate you coming on the jump seat today, and welcome.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.
So Jason, maybe for those of you who don't know your background, why don't you give us a little insight into your history in the fire service and really how you kind of got to where you are today in these key talking points of leadership and success in the fire service.
Yeah, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here. My name's Jason Hoevelmann, as you know, and I'm currently a career fire chief with the Florissant Valley Fire Protection District in North St. Louis County, which is just outside of St. Louis City, near Ferguson, which a lot of people are familiar with. And I've been a career firefighter for about 25 years. But I got my start about an hour outside of St. Louis, southwest of St. Louis, in a town called Sullivan, a little volunteer department that's now combination. It's grown over the years. And it started there in the mid-'80s as a junior firefighter, actually April 1985. And this is all I've done throughout my career outside of EMS. But in St. Louis County, you have to be a paramedic pretty much to get hired in St. Louis County. So that was a natural path. But I've been in emergency services my entire career. It's all I've ever done and all I've known. And I've been fortunate during that time and along my path to really meet and be mentored, and been offered a lot of great information and insight by some really incredible fire service officers, both of who a lot of your guests have probably heard of, and a lot who they probably haven't heard of and never will, because that's not what they've done or do. And I got lucky writing for fire engineering about 10, 12 years ago, and met Bobby Halton, and have taught at FDIC now for several years. And with that, I've been given a platform. To say that luck hasn't played a part would be a complete lie. But, and when you talk about leadership and the things we're going to talk about today, a lot of it is, I don't want to say regurgitated, but it's not a whole lot new. It's just you put your own personal experiences and adapt them into the needs that you have, or the needs that your members have. And so I've been given a voice to be able to share those things. And I love it every day, as much as I did the day I walked in the door.
That's great. And so for those who don't know, Chief Hoevelmann, he's an author, lecturer, speaker, does some consulting and leadership development. Chief, what made you passionate about going further than just going to work? What made you passionate about diving deeper and inspired your passion for some of this leadership and speaking and things like that? What made you go that route?
Yeah, generally speaking, the fire service, I mean, as a volunteer, I just cannot wait to do it for a living. And so I've always had the passion of what we do. Of course, fighting fire was what you did, but you have such an impact on so many people throughout your entire life that probably you'll never know the measure of that impact. But I'm sure it's certainly there. In regards to leadership and officer development, we had a time in our organization where I had a board of director at one time tell me straight up that as long as I was there, as long as that person was in their position, I'd never be promoted. And that several years ago, our organization is not that organization anymore. And everybody has ups and downs in their organizations. Mine's not any different than anybody else's, but it was a defining moment for me. The getting passed over for that promotion was not as impactful to me as being told that. And from that point forward, I just decided that, because I really had two choices. I could say, well, I'm screwed. I'm not going anywhere here. Or I keep my nose to the grindstone, which I had a lot of people telling me to do, and good advice, had good examples in those officers that I mentioned before. I was bought in to what the place could be and what my potential or movement could be in that organization, along with the leaders that were currently there trying to make changes. And that led me to the Facebook page, the new fire officer, and here I am sitting in front of you talking about it. And so it's persistence and resiliency if you really want it, whatever it is, but you got to really believe in it.
Well, Chief, we're glad that you're here sitting in front of us today, by the way, and sharing your insight with so many of our followers and people who watch regularly here on the show. I think when you look back at the past year, and when we look at the topic today, leadership and keys to success during uncertainty. I don't know that we can find a more appropriate time to throw uncertainty up than 2020 as a whole. So Chief, when you look at the fire service, were we ready for 2020?
No, not at all. And that's not an indictment on any organization. It's just a fact. The fire service, as much as we want to talk about preparation, I think we do it well, somewhat on the micro level in regards to training SOGs, some for fire prevention measures, things like that. I think we're getting better at and making an impact. I think where we're lacking and where it's most difficult is at that macro level, where that broad global view I can't say, I'm sure there's some departments that were ready for this. I've not talked to any that were truly ready for it. I think I would liken it to after 9/11 for those that were in the business back after 2001. UASI was created, Department of Homeland Security. We got all this money for preparation for large scale events, terrorism, pandemic, all that stuff. We had these black bags that were provided to us by the federal government through those UASI funds with all this hazmat gear, breathing cartridges, all this stuff. And not too many years ago, a lot of that stuff expired. And our organization is no different than any other. We didn't reinvest in most of that equipment because of funds and because of complacency. We're probably never going to need it, and I think the PPE problem that we went through at the beginning of this, I think showcases the idea that I'm not even sure that it's a lack of wanting. It's a lack of having the resources available to sit on stockpiles or to sit on certain kinds of equipment. The big heavy movers that were purchased in the early 2000s are all going to be really seeing the end of their life. They're all 20 years old. And I'm not sure how they're going to get replaced. And so we could end up in a little bit of a worse situation than we were before, depending on how those funds get allocated. So, but with that being said, I will add that although we were not as prepared as we could have been, and nobody's fault, it's not because of lack of wanting again. The fire service proved undoubtedly and arguably how resilient and adaptable and flexible they are when it came to this pandemic. They literally had to change how we operated in a matter of a day. It's so quick. We changed so many ways that we do things. The way that we respond to every single incident had to change. And it was done really within 24, 48 hours. And they did it successfully. And I would say that is by and large one huge benefit and positive that has come out of this, is that the fire service, American Fire Service, has proven and shown its resiliency and able to be flexible and adaptable. And now it's just common how we do it. It's not even a mention. Nobody even thinks about it. It's just done.
Yeah. So locally at your level, your department, I mean, it sounded like you guys were able to react quickly, make decisions. Was there a lot of interagency agreements that, just being in a metro area where you're at, was that pretty challenging, or did that go pretty smooth? Just, it was kind of, let's sit down, let's figure this out as a metro area and make it happen. How did that go?
It was a bit of a challenge simply because St. Louis County's got 43 different fire departments.
Yeah.
We're very fractured. We're very segregated. Now, we all work well together. Don't get me wrong. But as you know, when you get that many chiefs in a room or on a Zoom call, everybody's got an opinion. But I will tell you, they divided up the county into four areas: north, south, east, and west. And I would say that once we set up the command structure for each one of those area commands, things fell into place pretty well, and the chiefs understood the bigger picture and what was at stake. The continuity of operations was critically important. One of the biggest things that we did, and when you talk about continuity of operations early on, you're talking about food supply, you're talking about fuel, you're talking about all the infrastructure that's taken for granted for first responders to be able to function, and those things. And so they came together pretty quickly.
Sure.
So when you kind of look back on that, though, and really even the flexibility that you brought up here in the fire service in 2020, and how agile we were, what do you think some of the maybe short-term impacts may be from that, and then what are the long-term effects we may see from some of this change or from some of this agility? Where do you see that going in the future?
I think mostly long-term. The short-term impact obviously was the discomfort and inconvenience that was realized with the change, because it wasn't easy to sit here and say how resilient we were, that it just was a breeze. It was not an easy process changing those things. When you dig into the weeds of it, you're looking at collective bargaining unit stuff. You're looking at getting in touch with work comp and how's that going to be dealt with. All those things. But from a larger perspective, from the long term, I think what it has done is, I don't know when or if we will go back to the way we were operating before. And it's not a bad thing in regards to how we're cleaning, how we're decontaminating things, attention to PPE use on calls, more care with virus spread and things. I mean, just anecdotally speaking, I would say that my department has realized fewer sick days, and fewer people with coughs and runny noses and all the things that we see during the winter. Now, I could knock on wood and that could change next week, but I think just some of these really hygiene issues that we probably were not very good at to begin with is going to be better for our patients too, and the public at large. So I think that's a long-term positive consequence of this.
Yeah. One thing that I remember we talked about when we were preparing for this was just the topic of domestic terror and threat. We're unrealistic if we think that's going to go away. And so being proactive here, this is just kind of a warm up in a way of let's stay agile and nimble and be ready to react and move quickly and be proactive where we can be.
Yeah, I think interestingly, this pandemic started for us in March. I think around the 17th or 18th of March, where the EOC was in full tilt. The area commands were appointed, and we had this huge command structure, and we were working collaboratively on a regular basis throughout the summer. And then Memorial Day weekend comes along, and we have the situation in Minneapolis with George Floyd being killed and all the riots. It did lend itself we already kind of had a command structure set up. We had already had a lot of communications between agencies that we normally might not have had before, that I think allowed us to run the things over the summer a little bit better. But to your point, I do think domestic terrorism is a huge issue for the fire service. And I don't mean just civil unrest. I think we're going to see more of it. I think we're going to be challenged by it more. And I would suggest also that this won't be the last pandemic a lot of us see. Maybe not to this degree, but it's at some point. And our roles in the fire service continually throughout decades have changed and adapted. And I think we're going to see us playing a larger role in emergency management, in mitigation, and on the preventative side for a lot of these large scale events that we're going to see and be integral players in. I mean, the police, God bless them, they just don't do command and control well. And they need the fire side in there in a lot of cases to at least the local level to help with a lot of these events. And there was a lot of collaboration this summer with intelligence and things like that on that side.
Sure. Real quick sidebar note here for those watching. We had a episode in June. It was episode 10 actually, with Chief Homer Robertson talking about fire as a weapon and some other domestic terror topics. So that was June 26th, I think, is when we did that. So check it out if anybody wants to expand on that. But anyway, great point there, Chief.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And, you mentioned about the fire service and how, I just, same as Chief Swigert, who's one of our viewers who commented, we threw up his post there, hey, it will never be the same as 2019 again. And I think he's absolutely right in that comment. I think you made that statement as well. And now how we're adapting to newer and better things. Ironically, I was actually talking to a chief earlier today, ironically, it was Homer Robertson at the Fort Worth Fire Department who I was talking to. And he was actually just elaborating to the diversity of how they've changed, to the fact that, they actually have in their operations center set up a command post. They have a mini hospital in there. They're doing not only COVID testing, but administering of vaccinations as a fire department, and even doing antigen transfusions on site at their facility. And so if you were to go to that facility 2 years ago, I guarantee you wouldn't have seen anything like that at their training grounds and their operations facility there, which is an incredible facility at that. But how times and how the pandemic has caused us to diversify and or adapt in the scheme of things.
Yeah.
There's a good question that just came in though. Chief, I'm going to throw this out to you, and I apologize to jump away, but this just came in from Anthony Strazo. Sorry if you've covered this already, but what effects do you see on the fire service department's budgets as most of them continue to decrease, and now obviously greater duties and responsibilities are happening as a result of this? So, Anthony, great question. Chief, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think The answer is it depends on your organization. For example, I'm a fire district. Our tax base is largely property taxes. So if you're a municipal fire department or a county fire department that is mostly taxed from sales taxes or business fees, you're going to see immediate budget problems, which we're seeing in our area too. The municipal fire departments are really struggling because sales tax is low, and a lot of states haven't really caught up with internet sales tax. And so you compound those things. People aren't shopping. They're taking their business to online shopping and delivery, and they're going to see an impact immediately. And he's 100% right that the responsibilities are going to increase, and they're going to lay people off if they don't get funding. And that's, take politics out of it. It doesn't matter what political party is running the city. We've got to figure out a way, however that's done, to get resources to these municipal fire departments. Now, for me, I'm going to see decreases in the long term. I'm going to see where people quit paying their property taxes. They're late. They're a couple of years behind because they've been laid off. They haven't had a job. So I'm going to realize that effect a little more slowly and over probably a 2 or 3 year period. At least that's my prediction and how we're budgeting. And we're looking at, I got a meeting in about 35 minutes about being a vaccination site. Because if we truly want to solve this problem, we need as many people vaccinated as possible. And because the symptoms are less, that means fewer transports to the hospital. So we've kind of taken a stance like Chief Robertson has, that we want to be involved to get to our constituents if they choose so. And so we're looking at that as well. But yeah, budgets are going to be impacted. I think it's going to be a long time. I think it's going to be a slow recovery getting that money back, unless the federal budget just infuses tons of money into local state government.
Yeah, we haven't seen that yet. We've seen some, but we haven't seen it to that level that is actually beneficial to all the departments from that perspective. Leadership in this kind of time is key. And obviously that's one of your specialties here. So for those fire department leaders that are actually out there, those who are on here, I know we've got 2 chiefs who I happen to know very well, who just commented here so far today. What are some key, takeaways or things you could add to help them become stronger, maybe even help them boost morale within their departments as they look at 2020 and think about 2021?
Yeah, I think a few things come to mind that we did at our place. And leadership was not, it wasn't unilateral. So it was binary in nature. So it came from staff and it came from union leadership if you've got a union. And you've got to have that collaboration early to understand what we want to accomplish. And you got to get egos out of the room. This is about, really at that point, it was about survival. We didn't know how much PPE we were going to have. We didn't know how long this was going to last. We didn't know if we were going to be running a tremendous amount more. We just didn't know what all the variables were at that point early on. So it was determined early by myself and others that collaboration was key. And we had to have the availability to have opinions. But what's important with that is that collaboration has to happen around a common mission. It's got to happen around whether it's your mission statement for your department or it's a mission statement for that particular event. Our mission statement for our department is we take care of people. And so that was what guided us collaboratively. With that, you have to really message well and frequently. What I did at my department was at least once a week, sometimes every 10 days, I did a video recording in my office with an update and sent it out to the entire department. I also did that occasionally to our community through our Facebook page. And there was never, we were very careful about how we message things, and we wanted to stay consistent. And we also wanted to let people know that we did not have all the answers, that this was fluid, that things could change, and that we're doing our best to look out for them. And that was huge in getting buy-in early, that there were no strict demands, there were no threats, there were no scare tactics, there were none of those things. It was all about the facts that we knew. As a leader, that's going to message that means you have to prepare. That means that you have to spend a lot of time in reading all those emails that come through from the EOC or Department of Health. You have to get on the CDC website and John Hopkins and all of those reputable and credible sites and read and read and read. And for probably 2 months, that's all I did. And then we messaged, and then we met, and then we read, and it was a cycle. And with that comes a sense of confidence and trust. I think I would say that our people, our members, really tried hard to follow the messaging, and I think that they trusted us. Now, don't mix that up with being happy, okay? And I used the same method. I was the area commander for North County with 16 other departments, and I did the same thing with them, and we were successful. We over-communicated the messaging. We overemphasized what needed to be done. We involved people into the decision-making, and that collaboration created trust. The mission created messaging that was accurate and true and genuine. And during a time like this, I think those things are really critical.
What's really neat about that too is that you used technology, your laptop or your cell phone, to communicate in a human form with body language without having to worry about transmitting this whole thing to your members, the public, other people. And it came across more than just, oh, it's another email from the chief, right? You said the same thing, but you did it with your body language and with your voice with such a big topic. I think that's brilliant and simple all at the same time.
What was important too with that, John, was that it eliminated rumors and interpretation because it was coming straight from me. I just wasn't in the same room.
Sure.
That's a great point, and obviously a valuable one to those of you guys who are watching and maybe facing some of those exact same challenges right now. And actually, we just had another question come in. How have you been able to lead your team to get vaccinated? Have you had any of your team refuse to be vaccinated? Oh, that's a pertinent question, and I'm curious myself because I see that challenge happening in many places.
Everywhere.
Yes, we're dealing with it this week, as a matter of fact, and this week has kind of spun out of control. We just found out late Tuesday that we were going to get vaccinated starting tomorrow. I did a video Tuesday night or Wednesday early morning after meeting. We had a staff meeting Wednesday first thing with staff and labor. We came in, our attorney and a board of directors, and we came up with a mission. We came up with a message based on that and our collaboration and compromise. And that message went out twice on Wednesday. So there were 2 videos that went out to Wednesday. On top of that, we have a text system. So we sent the emails, and then we sent texts that said to check your email to make sure everybody was aware. I do have about a third of my department has currently chosen not to be vaccinated. Our attorney told us we could mandate it legally. For us, we decided that probably opened up more resentment and would get less buy-in on future topics or issues long-term. So we chose not to do that. One of the incentives we did talk about, we haven't completely decided on, though, is allowing members to go to outside classes if they get the vaccination. So we're trying to find ways to incentivize people without making it mandatory. But again, the messaging, and what's interesting is I got messages back from members who are not getting vaccinated that thanked me for the message. So, we provide facts. We probably at least once a day, we're pumping out something, whether it's an email, a text message, or a video right now in regards to vaccination. I think that the reality is that over time, I suspect that close to 80% of my members will become vaccinated, but I think it's just a matter of when it happens.
I just threw my screen up here really quick too. This is actually a pretty powerful video that just came out yesterday. It's kind of crazy how this whole conversation has kind of migrated to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. This is actually Chief Sam Greif on the left there. He's the chief of the Plano Fire Department and is a retired chief at a assistant chief at Fort Worth, an individual I know very, very well and have known. And so to Chief Swigert, who commented there, and to maybe any others who are following, go check it out. It's on Firehouse. You can find it on most of the other sites on the fire media here today. But Chief Greif puts out a pretty direct statement from his hospital bed, as he's been there almost 2 weeks now battling COVID. And his message is pretty straightforward. Go get the vaccine. So I don't want to tell you one way or the other, but this might be a valuable tool to have available, or to just share just his personal story.
Very good.
Something else is another resource that's actually out there.
Yeah, we strongly encourage our people to get it. We've tried short of mandating it. We've messaged that, listen, this is to protect you and to keep you healthy. And quite honestly, we don't know what the long-term health effects could be, or if, God forbid, somebody would pass away from this or be permanently disabled, if federal benefits are going to be available if they refuse a vaccine. We just don't know what those answers are long term. And so, I look at it as protecting our people in multiple ways. Now, we offer that information to them, but they still have personal choice not to do it. But I suspect as this moves forward and the vaccine is out for a while, more people will get it.
I think you're right.
Absolutely. Well, Chief, we know you actually have a very busy day here and have got a meeting you got to get run into here in a few minutes as well. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining us here on the Jump Seat today. At the beginning of the show, we did mention that you are an author. You've got a number of great books actually out there and available in different places. But you also do a really cool show or a Facebook page, right? The new fire officers, page on Facebook. And so I know you've said, hey, we can make this available to everybody. So we did throw it up on the screen here down below. It does have Chief's personal email, as well as the link to his Facebook page. You want to tell us a little bit more about your page and maybe some of your books that you've got out there?
Yeah, so the Facebook page was built in frustration, and it became very cathartic and therapeutic for me. And when I started it, I never dreamed it would be what it was, and it's been, I don't know, maybe 8-9 years now since it's been up. Basically, I just put little anecdotes and leadership information up for people to use, and I've got almost 30,000 people on it. It's a good community. I do some online training for officer development and leadership, and the book, No Exceptions Leadership, was the first book that I did 4 years ago, and it's really it's not a book like you read through front page. It's kind of a desk reference type thing, a handbook, and it's supposed to be read that way. And then I did a book with Pinwell Fire Engineering, the new company officer, which kind of takes the class that I do online and puts it into pages. And I've been fortunate. I've been real fortunate.
Fantastic. Yeah, everybody watching that's on Facebook, which is most of you, check out the group, join the group. It's quite a community with, you said, 30,000 members now. So we sure appreciate you joining the show today. And as Dave said, great information, great topic, very pertinent to the times, right? And so anyway, Chief Hoevelmann, once again, we appreciate you being here today. And thank you so much for coming on the Jump Seat.
My pleasure. Honored to be here. Thanks so much.
We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Chief.
Bye.
So, John, I mean, great stuff there, and I really appreciate Chief Hoevelmann there and all of that insight. That was just awesome. And I'm glad to be back here on a regular basis with you and throwing our ideas up and out there. We always want to hear more suggestions or ideas from all of you. So those of you guys are watching right now, fire away in your comments. Give us ideas or concepts. I actually know a couple of you who I see who are on right now sent me some last week. We want to make sure we're getting great content like Chief Hoevelmann had here, available and out to you all. So if you got ideas, suggestions, shoot them to us via email, put them in the comments this week, next week. And with that being said,
I was going to say,
we got another great show next week. I can't wait till next week, by the way.
That's right.
So we're bringing back a guy who was on here in November, Mr. Jason DeFosse. He is an extrication expert, one of our brothers from up north in Canada, And so he's going to come on to talk about the 10 moves of doom. And I'm going to leave it at that. But I know that it's going to be an entertaining show with a lot of great information in the extrication world that would be really beneficial to all. So please don't miss next Friday's episode, 10 Moves of Doom, with our guest, Jason DeFosse, out of Canada there. John, anything else you want to add?
Nope. That's all good stuff. And appreciate everybody joining. We'll see you next week in the jump seat. Everyone stay well and be safe. Take care.